Welcome back for another helping of oysters, clams, and cockles, bringing you the best TV shows and movies weekly in an easily digestible podcast packed with laughs by me, Ross Bolen, and my dear friend, Mr. Barrett Dudley. Barrett, what is good?
Not too much, man. I'm just over here doing risky things with my most powerful piece.
Oh, wow. That's sexy.
Yeah, isn't that sexy?
That's hashtag sexy chess.
You know, just playing some Bob's Maneuver and do a little the mariachi trifecta is one of my favorites as well.
It's a great move.
It's one that I've been doing.
Yeah, you play King's Pawn to Rook 7 in that one.
Right.
Everybody knows that.
And don't forget about KB4
Yeah.
to Pawn 3. And that's how you pull off the abominable snowman.
I'm going to be honest with you. When I started, obviously we're going to talk a little Queen's Gambit today. When I started watching the show, I'm 5 episodes in now. Okay.
You're almost done, man.
I've been cruising. I've been cruising.
You cruise through this show.
I got sucked in.
It is a cruiser.
Sucked me in, Barrett. Sucked me right in.
Tractor beam.
Sucked me right in. And I got through 5 this weekend, man. I obviously love it like everybody does. If we're to come forward with an anti-Queen's Gambit opinion right now would be completely asinine. We all need something to get behind. We've got this. Don't fuck with it. It's great.
Yeah.
And when I started watching, I was like, a couple episodes in, I'm like, man, because I know how to play chess. I have a chess board. Chess has always been in my life for some reason. Like, I was in chess club when I was a little kid in middle school. Shouts to Mr. Smithwick. He had a mustache.
That's not a
He
real
was
name.
our history teacher. It's a real name. Swear to God. St. Francis Episcopal Day School. Google him. I want to say he's still with us. The dude was one of my favorite teachers. It's like one of the... I remember like 3 teachers, Barrett. My memory is not great, so this guy's real.
Okay.
And I was in chess club with him. And then my grandma always had a chess set at her house. So, like, during the holidays, during Thanksgiving, during Christmas, I would always play chess against, like, somebody, one of my cousins or my dad or whatever. And then I got a chessboard in my house. At one point, somebody gave it to me as a Christmas gift. And it's a really nice one. It's all, like, the stone pieces. It's really sexy chess. And so I've, like, periodically, I've just always kept up with it. I know how to play it. I know how to set the board. So as I'm watching the show, I felt sexy too. I was like, I can do all of these things. And then they got to the part where he was like, only the good chess players know the names of the squares. And I was like, fuck! Because I don't know a single one of the names of the squares, as you just revealed as we were shouting out completely inaccurate moves.
There are 2 brands of chess players. There are chess players such as you and I, such as you and me.
Amateurs.
That know how to set up the board. We know how the pieces move.
We do.
And we could get a chessboard right here, and we could play a game of chess.
You could play some chess.
Then there's that is the base level chess player.
Then there's a chess player.
Then there are people that actually know chess and know an opening or two and know the
openings, hashtag openings,
and know the hashtag Mudgate. And then they know the what the squares are called, and that's just like another. That's another level of playing this game. You know what I mean?
It really is, though. Like, you go up against somebody who knows, like, when you moved your first pawn, they know what they're going to do for the next 5 moves because they know openings. You're fucked.
Yeah. You're toast.
That's not a thing that you're going to be able to overcome. They're going to perform a very quick execution of your king.
Yeah.
And then you go, oh, there's other levels to this shit.
That's right.
Yeah.
There's levels to this.
There are levels to this shit, as we see in Queen's Gambit. And we'll get into the show more specifically here in a little bit. We've got a lot to talk about today. We've got Tidbits and such with Barrett. We got Queen's Gambit. I finished Bly Manor, so we're going to talk about the finale. And then we have huge announcements regarding 2021 plans for this podcast in general and our Patreon subscribers and supporters and really everybody who listens to this show will want to know this news that we have for 2021 coming up at the end of today's podcast. So let's get started. This episode of OCC is brought to you by Felix Gray Glasses. Barrett and I constantly have our faces in screens from morning to night, as do all of you at this point. There is no cutting back. 2020 has changed the game. We're all required to stare at screens all day now to get our jobs done, to stay in touch with friends and family. Technology was already at the forefront of our lives. Now it's even more extreme. And screen time, too much of it can result in tired, dry eyes, headaches, blurry vision, trouble sleeping. These are problems I've experienced pretty much my whole life as a severe cell phone addict, and then also a dude who wears contacts and glasses and lives in like the allergy capital of the world in Austin, Texas. but not since I've been wearing my Felix Gray blue light glasses. They launched in 2016 with the singular focus of offering the most effective computer glasses on the market with all the quality of brand name designer frames. They quickly became the internet's favorite blue light glasses. They filter out 90% of high energy blue light, eliminate 99% of glare, that harsh glare coming from your screens. Huge. The second you slide them on, you're going to feel the improvements. I wear mine all the time when I'm gaming late at night, when I'm watching TV shows before bed, when my eyes are worn out and tired after a long day. And unlike other brands who use cheap blue light coatings that are ineffective and can chip or scratch, Felix Gray uses a proprietary blue light technology that's embedded directly into the lens. They're available in prescription, non-prescription readers. Felix Gray has you covered with optical glasses for work and sleep glasses in the evening that are clinically proven to increase melatonin secretion when worn leading up to bedtime. So get yourself some Felix Grays today. I've got the Faraday frames, also the Nash, if you want a couple of different styles to look at on their site. I trust Felix Gray because they make the best blue light glasses in the game. I've been wearing them for years. Go to felixgrayglasses.com/OCC and get a pair of blue light glasses from the pros today. Shipping and returns totally free when you go to felixgrayglasses.com/OCC, felixgrayglasses.com/OCC. And now it's time for everybody's favorite segment, Tidbits and Such, with Barrett.
Yeah, baby. Okay, tonight. You've got some viewing options. Obviously, we're continuing with Tayshia as the Bachelorette. Not sure if you knew this, Ross, if you've kept up, but Claire was the Bachelorette. Well, now it's Tayshia.
Claire's out.
Because of a whole lot of drama. Opposing this, the competition is a show that we've mentioned briefly here. It is Big Sky. And Big Sky, actually, you know what?
Big Sky's the other Montana show.
Big Sky is the other Montana show. And actually, now that I'm saying this out loud, it might not actually be competition. It might be coming on right after. It's coming on tonight after The Bachelorette.
Is it on the same network?
ABC, yes. It
so
is
they're leading into Big Sky.
Big Sky is debuting. And Big Sky was kind of a joke when I first brought it up. I was just kind of talking about the hubbub of how everybody wants a piece of that big Montana sky at the moment.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
And just like, how could you not when you
absolutely
when you saddle up your stallion and you get out there, you look at those mountain ranges, those sweet mountain ranges, and then you just thank your stars that you're standing there under that big beautiful Big Sky, because it's Big Sky country. Anyways, but this is a David E. Kelly show.
Which is a serious thing.
It's a serious thing. This guy is
people care.
He's a pro. This guy, he does work.
Consummate professional.
Yeah, he's good at TV. And it's got Ryan Phillippe in it.
He did Ally McBeal, Big Little Lies, Boston Legal. These are respected shows.
Very respected shows. The Practice.
Indeed.
I mean, like, it just goes on and on.
The Practice, yeah. And writer, too. Great writer.
Amazing writer. So we've got Ryan Phillippe here starring. It's obviously going to be kind of procedural, but I think that they probably are going to try to do a little bit of serialization in this one, make it like a step, just one tiny step up from your general broadcast television.
Sure.
And I mean, like, early reviews are pretty good. That it's a fun show. So I'm not telling you that I'm going to watch Big Sky, but I'm not saying that I'm not going to just hang around after The Bachelorette and just maybe see what the first 15 minutes feel like.
I'll be honest with you. The thing that majorly concerns me about Big Sky is the star.
Is Ryan Phillippe.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm like,
don't trust this guy.
It's not that I don't trust him. I don't trust him.
I've seen Ryan Phillippe in a lot of stuff where I'm like, is this guy just a terrible actor? Right?
Right.
He's not a good actor, is he?
No.
How's he getting these deals? How's he getting these gigs?
I don't know. It strikes me as kind of like a Vince Vaughn in True Detective Season 2 move, like try to revitalize a guy that you think's got some talent.
Yeah.
And people know him. He's a name brand, so he's got some draw automatically. Okay. You're kind of like my main interest in the show, I guess, is if Felipe will be able to pull off doing stuff.
I mean, my main interest is just getting back out there.
Any excuse for you,
enjoying the Big Sky.
Yeah, you just want to wear a hat.
Just can't wait to get back out there to the Big Sky.
And assless chaps. That's what Barrett's
I will put on my. I will switch out of my crown of roses tonight and put on my assless chaps for Big Sky. You mentioned Vince.
Not after I take a sip of water.
Vince Vaughn in True Detective Season 2.
Yeah.
Perfect segue. For this next piece of such here.
Uh-huh.
So last week I think right before we did our Patreon episode the night before. I was kind of working late. We just had shit on in the background, and Laura had never seen the movie Old School, 2003's Old School. This movie is 17 years old now.
Classic frat guy comedy.
Yeah. And so we just had it on. We put it on in the background. And these movies are always interesting to go back and rewatch for a variety of reasons. One, they were very formative, and this was like the second set of movies for us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was the original ones that molded us.
Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison,
that we were born in.
Tommy Boy, etc.
Other people just merely adopted them.
Sure.
The ones you just named: Billy Madison, Tommy Boy,
yes, sir.
Both Ace Venturas,
Dumb and
Dumber,
Dumber.
all of those films.
Absolutely.
And then there was the second set, you know, which they, you know, those were the ones we were born in.
Basically.
The next ones we were molded by.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Now we're talking Zoolander, Old School, Wedding Crashers.
Yeah.
Like that.
Anchorman.
Anchorman.
More all those comedies.
That run in the early 2000s there.
Right.
So it's always interesting to go back, like the ones that we were born, the ones that were Step Brothers, yeah, exactly. The ones that we were born in, they age flawlessly. I can go back and watch any of those movies. I laugh my ass off, dude.
I agree.
These ones in the early 2000s have a different flavor, and it's always it can be
because they got edgier, man.
Yeah, it can be sticky, and they don't always age well.
Yes.
I was shocked at how well this one has aged.
Really?
Yeah,
That's huge news.
It was really, really funny, and there aren't that many, like, you know, obviously there are bits and pieces where you're like, oh, yep, you'd cut that in 2020, but not many. It's pretty down the middle, and I think the funniest thing is that while I found the movie really funny, all the stuff that we quoted when we were in high school, that stuff is not funny. It's the least funny. They are the least funny moments of the film. And that's another piece that's fun to go back and watch is how, you know, these guys, Judd Apatow and the whole gang that Todd Phillips that were making these movies, and then all the actors. It's like
The Hangover.
They know what pieces of the movie are aimed at the 11 and 15 and 17-year-olds, and then they know what pieces of the movie are aimed at, you know, 25 plus.
Yeah, sometimes I want, like you and I talked about this a little bit, and I can't remember if it was off mic or on Patreon or what, but I wonder sometimes if it's just a really well-written movie that naturally will have elements that you have that are funny when you're a kid, funny when you're older, funny when you're, you know, up into your middle age, whatever. Or is that something that's intentional? Like do they actually sit there and say, do we have enough for Gen Z? Do we have enough for the millennials? Do we have enough for the baby boomers or whatever? Like,
yeah.
And I don't know. In the case of Old School, I feel like that's just well written in a way where you could read through it and be like, this is all just very well done, and it doesn't have things that could potentially, like, it's just there's certain things that age poorly, right? And it's like when you push the envelope in certain ways, you take the risk of aging poorly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like especially because the last 5-10 years have been so full of social change. There's a lot of jokes, man, and even in rap and in music too.
Sure, yeah.
I'll go back and listen to lyrics in songs that I loved from the early 2000s, and I'm like, well, can't say that shit anymore. No siree. It doesn't even have anything to do with race. It's just there'll be like stuff about sexuality that I'm like, oh, that's quite offensive in 2020. So, yeah, it's weird, but it's good to hear that Old School is one that ages well, because it seriously is. There are parts of this movie that are so funny, like this dude getting drunk at the wedding and getting on stage and giving a speech and going, "True love is hard to find." Sometimes you think you have true love, and then you catch the early flight home from San Diego, and a couple of nude people jump out of your bathroom blindfolded like a goddamn magic show, ready to double team your girlfriend.
Yeah,
that's funny at 15. And it's even funnier post-divorce at 33.
Well, and a lot of this movie is very funny in the light of long-term relationships. Like another example that's funny for both.
Good point.
Everybody always quotes the, you know, Home Depot, maybe we'll go to Best Buy. Like
this is a genius point, though.
Bed Bath & Beyond, I don't know if there will be time. That was funny.
That's a relationship joke.
It is even funnier when you have spent the last 7 months going to Home Depot every fucking weekend.
as Barrett has.
Like it is like once that's real for you,
It's even funnier.
it's even funnier and hits
dude.
entirely different.
Think about all the different elements of this. They've got Mitch, girlfriend, single, ends up single, right? Not married,
Yep.
never been married. You've got Frank the Tank, who's newly married. You've got a newlywed, and the hilarity that goes with that, and then inevitably him falling apart and getting a divorce,
Yes.
which is also hysterical. You've got Vince Vaughn, who owns whatever the fuck the name of his fucking... What is the name of his store?
Studio City or something like that. I can't remember. Speaker City.
Speaker City. You've got the Speaker City owner.
Yep.
Who's married and has a
Married,
kid.
2 kids.
One of them's a newborn,
and
earmuffs.
and then their earmuffs kid.
So they cover like every element
do,
of
yeah.
sort of male
Yep.
progression through your early 20s to like late 30s, really.
Yeah. And that's another like I think one of the reasons that this particular movie holds up so well is because it hits at this thing that a lot of movies, the two others that are kind of in this realm that are a little bit more recent that come to mind are actually 2 Amy Poehler films. The one where they set their house up as a casino. I can't remember what that's called, but it has Will Ferrell in it. And then the one with her and Tina Fey that I believe is called Sisters.
One's called The House.
The House, yeah. And then I think the one is with her and Tina Fey is called Sisters. But all 3 of these
Yes,
movies
that's correct.
are about what they hit on, what they capture is that even no matter your age, especially into like your mid 30s and even beyond, you never really lose that desire to like let it all hang out and like go to a fucking badass house party
Sure.
and get wild. Right? And so like
Clearly you don't.
it just picks on that kind of inner desire that even though you're not doing that every weekend, even though maybe you don't even get to do that once a year anymore,
Right.
everybody still kind of wants that
Because that's what the movie's
party.
about.
Right.
That's what the movie's about. It's the guy with the kid and the wife, but he still wants a place to party.
Yep.
It's the dude who's just got married, but he still wants a place to party. The guy who's single and he's like trying to date, like find his way in the world, but he still wants a place. Like, yeah, I know that translated a lot, and it's also that's the part of it that's it's a fraternity movie that they found a way to make it wide-ranging and appealing to people who don't like fraternities.
Well, but that
necessarily.
was an obvious. The way they did that was obvious. The
Yeah.
fraternity is extremely inclusive.
Yes.
Age, race, like not okay. I guess they don't have women in it, but
Yeah.
but that's just a difference between fraternity and sorority, right? Like
Right.
they're by their nature they are only
One sex.
one sex.
Yeah.
But
In most cases.
But it's a very inclusive fraternity compared to the experience that most people
of us
have with
yeah.
fraternities.
Especially back in the day. I mean, it's
Yeah.
become more and more inclusive over the last 15 years, but it was very much not inclusive
so
in
the
the
fact
way
that
it
you
was
had
set up. We
people
had
from- you
black
had-
fraternities, you had white fraternities, you have sororities that are only. It was completely ridiculous, frankly.
Right. But they've got everybody, all races and all people that look all sorts of different ways.
People
and
that are
blue
maybe not
is
even in school, that
100
are
years old. Yeah, people that aren't in school.
not traditional students.
So the final thing that I wanted to touch on here is that this was also a moment in time that captured so many famous people in this film. Like
Very true.
the cast was incredible, and it's fun to look back for a couple of different reasons on the trajectory that these people ended up on, because you had your 3 main stars, Luke Wilson, Will Ferrell, and Vince Vaughn, who all would go on to very successful careers, continuing to do some stuff like this, and then obviously branching out into all sorts of other avenues as well, more serious fare.
Yeah.
Then just below that, you had Jeremy Piven as Dean Pritchard.
At the height of Entourage
this
success,
was-
too, right?
No,
or right after
no.
it?
This was the last role he ever did as not cool Jeremy Piven.
Really? So this is pre.
This is more
Ari Gold.
There's Seinfeld where Jeremy Piven is literally playing the character of a character where he's George.
Oh, right.
He is playing George, so the schmuck, the balding schmuck,
Okay.
right? That's Jeremy Piven in like the mid 90s. And then you have Jeremy Piven 2003 as the nerd dickhead Dean of Old School. And then like the very next year, he gets cast as Ari Gold and is cool, badass Hollywood Jeremy Piven.
Yeah, 2 years later, 2004,
Yeah.
2 years later, and then for 7 years he's Ari Gold, and then he's badass.
And then now he
agent.
completely changes. He completely flips the script on
Wow.
what type of actor he is. And his wife in Entourage is Perry Reeves, who's also in this movie. She's Will Ferrell's wife.
That's very true.
The other really, really interesting person here is Ellen Pompeo,
Oh, yeah.
who is Luke Wilson's love interest.
Right.
And she is 1 year away from becoming the most highly paid actress on television.
Because of Grey's Anatomy?
And I think in television history now.
Because of Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Which is still going on.
Also, Leah Remini. We brought her up.
Leah Remini is in it.
She's Laura. And she's, we brought her up recently because of the Scientology situation. She's got another documentary on Scientology on Netflix now.
You got Craig Kilborn. Alicia Cuthbert is in this movie.
Sean William Scott.
Sean William Scott shows up as the donkey trainer.
I love you, man, but you're crazy.
You're crazy. You're crazy,
You got a fucking dart in your neck.
Matt Walsh, the guy that plays Mike in Veep, is in it. Artie Lang is in it. Who else you got? You got Rob Corddry.
When he still had a nose.
Rob Corddry is in this film.
Oh, my God.
He's one of the pledges.
Oh, yeah. What the hell? That's before he was even famous.
Yes.
Like, I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to scroll way down to even get to him.
He's not even on the
list.
first page of the cast list on IMDb. Yeah, they really cast the shit out of this. This was like Todd Phillips, like, peaking, frankly. I mean, The Hangover was, I guess, but this is pretty fucking close. This is like pre full-blown Hollywood Reputation where everybody in America knew who he was.
Yeah.
He pieced together like this incredible SNL style almost cast
right.
with 100 different people who were going to crush their whole careers and made a hilarious movie that aged well.
And then
that's a rare accomplishment.
And then final note here, all the way back around. Also, don't forget that this is the guy that made Joker last year.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah,
that's
so
Todd Phillips, man.
That's Todd Phillips.
He's had a career, dude.
He's
doing it.
Yeah.
He's not poor. That's for sure.
Yeah, this movie is
unless he's really blowing it.
Todd Phillips. This is his nicest movie, I think. You know, he's kind of got this reputation as he's this kind of edgy, like anti-PC kind of.
Now, for sure now.
Ass.
Yeah, a little bit.
I
mean, he made Joker with Joaquin Phoenix, so yeah.
And The Hangover, which is more irreverent than Old School and goes further.
True. There are parts of Old School that, I mean, even the shit that's inappropriate, the couple of lines that are inappropriate about Old School, you can frame up to be hilarious and inappropriate.
The
cab driver's a homophobe.
The biggest thing that stood out to me is that it's played for a joke that Luke Wilson sleeps with his boss's daughter, who is in high school.
Oh, yeah, that's
the biggest one.
And frankly, that was that way almost a little bit when it came out. Like, it was like, whoa, your life would be ruined, bro. Like, that's
they don't
not
even,
funny.
They don't even try to drop in a line there to like make her 18 either.
Yeah, like give us something to paint this in a better light. At one point, he's like meeting with her dad, and she comes in, and it's like, what, dude?
Yeah.
She's 16.
I did not realize that Todd Phillips also did Project X, though.
Did you commit statutory?
That's interesting.
Like in the first 20 minutes of the film? Did you, Owen? Yeah, great movie though overall.
Yeah. So definitely a fun one to revisit, and I was happy because a couple of these I've gone back recently, and you're like, no.
This started happening to us. Barrett and I opened.
Throw this one in the fire.
Hagrid was Pandora's box, dude.
Yeah,
it was. Let's just be real.
But I enjoyed Old School. It was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other such or tidbits?
No, that's it. That's it. We can move on.
Well, beautiful. We will move on. This episode of OCC is also brought to you by Echelon. Everyone knows I'm back on the Ross Fit grind, all 2020, baby. We're going to come out of this shitstorm of a year harder, better, faster, stronger, like 2007 Kanye West. And when it comes to getting or staying in shape, nothing feels as good as that feeling of accomplishment of hitting your fitness goals and feeling great about yourself. Echelon can get you there, offering the next generation of connected fitness bikes, fitness mirrors, rowing machines, and their all-new Stride Smart treadmill. No matter what your favorite fitness activity, Echelon gives you a chance, a fun and challenging workout from the comfort of home with their world-class instructors motivating you with thousands of daily live and on-demand studio-level classes, always available when you need them. Unlike their competitors, Echelon is affordable for everyone, and one membership lets up to 5 family members all work out at the same time. I got my mom one. Go check out their prices. So much more affordable than all the name brand fitness equipment that you're probably more familiar with. And right now, you can try Echelon fitness equipment at home for 30 days when you go to echelonfit.com/dragon. That's ECHELON fit.com/dragon to try any Echelon fitness equipment at home for 30 days. And now it's time to talk a little more sexy chess. So I'm up through. Can we do light spoilers today with the Queen's Gambit? Are people? I feel like I'm behind. Most people are in front of me.
I would say that's correct. We can go up, and I'm only one. Like, there's only 7 episodes here.
Didn't realize that. Now I'm a little bit scared.
And I've seen 6. For a variety of reasons, I've not been able to get to the finale.
Now, the reason I ask if we can do light spoilers, if you can't, I'm just going to throw out one thing that's going to be sort of a baseline for what I've seen up to, okay? I'm going to throw out the last major event that happens that I can remember, okay? So hit skip now if you don't want to hear it. Her mother passes away.
Okay.
You've seen this?
Yes.
You seen this? Have you heard about this?
I've heard about this, yeah.
And I think that might even be in episode 6 that I started, perhaps, and then I was like, "Whoa, what the shit, man! I'm not focused," and I paused it.
No, that happens in.
Or is that 5?
I think that's 5.
Okay. Yeah. So there's an episode that whatever that one where her mom dies, that last one I watched that I was a little in and out of. So that being said, last time we discussed Queen's Gambit, all we had really discussed was you were pitching us all on the show.
Yeah.
The hype had been built. Everybody was talking about it. It's the rage on Twitter and Instagram and social media, blah, blah, blah. My mom's hitting me for weeks now. You've got to watch Queen's Gambit. So, and my co-host on the Ross Bolen podcast as well, you've said it. So I dive in. Like you said, it's very addictive. It's a super easy binge. It's kind of one where an episode ends and you're like, man, time flies. That was a whole episode? Wow, okay, let's just do the next one. And the next thing you know, you're almost done with the entire season. A lot of people are watching this thing in a day, on like a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yeah.
And it is really engrossing, man, the way they've done this. And one of my first kind of thoughts, obviously I saw a lot of jokes about the pill popping, all right, on Twitter. And the
Directed at you?
No, just in general. I saw good jokes on Twitter about like people trying to like pop pills and see chessboards on their ceilings and shit. And that one it's so weird. So like, why were they giving all these kids tranquilizers, man?
So
there must be some historical context.
There has to be, and I actually meant to look that up, but then I didn't. And I just, but like you said, I'm just assuming that this was a kind of a known thing that in the middle of the 20th century, 1930s, 40s, 50s, they were just tranking the little orphan kids.
Yeah, and I mean, she obviously
to keep things, level.
So the green pill, apparently, according to Newsweek, is called Zanzalam, and it is likely a fictional version of Librium or chlordazide. I can't say these words. It was a pill in the 1960s, which is where the Queen's Gambit is set, approved for medical use in 1960, that was delivered in half-green capsules used as a treatment for those with anxiety or insomnia, often prescribed to deal with symptoms that come from withdrawal from alcohol or drugs as well, which is, I can see how that could perhaps be a thing that was abused at places like that orphanage, and maybe there was a specific story from history that they went off of, who knows.
Yeah.
But that's a really strange element, because obviously she struggles with the result of that later on, the result of that addiction, and it takes forms in different ways, and really she has to cope with a lot of loss and pain, and the situation with her family even before her mother's ultimate situation is not good. Her stepdad is such an asshole, just totally disconnected.
Yep.
They clearly lost a daughter that was around her age, right, that they're trying to sort of replace, I think is the vibe I got. They had lost a daughter, I'm pretty positive.
Yeah, I didn't actually. I read that as her having lost either a pregnancy or a young child.
I thought they lost one that was like her age when they adopted her, and
I don't think so.
Maybe not. I'm not sure, but that was the vibe I got. But they're a damaged home, right?
Yeah,
they're a broken home. The dude is never really there. The mom is so. I think she's one of the best characters in the show. The mom.
She's great, yeah.
Because she does such a good job of sort of capturing like the whimsical nature of this housewife sensation that swept the nation, right? To make a little rhyme. There was a point where many of these women were sort of like felt obligated to stay in the home, raise the children, do the housework or whatever. That's like sort of frankly, an unfulfilling life. And she was living that version of life. And then she finds some freedom in the form of her daughter's success. And there's an unhealthy sort of scale there, right? It's a little weird, that element. Because she wasn't a great mom. Right?
Yeah,
she wasn't a great mom, and then she's benefiting greatly from this little girl's success and talent.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's...
She's not a great nurturer.
The nuance of their relationship is one of my favorite things about the show.
It really is. It's
because
captivating.
I'm having a brain fart here. What's our protagonist's name?
I'm pulling
Beth.
I'm pulling everybody up. Beth Harmon.
Beth comes in to the home and is not a child really anymore.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
She's had to do a lot more growing up in the orphanage than most kids her age.
She's a teenager.
Yeah,
she lies about how old she has to lie about how old she is, saying she's 13 when she's really 15.
Right.
So the relationship,
they shave a couple years off.
The relationship already is unique in that it's going to be a mother-daughter relationship, but there's not going to be a lot of mothering that needs to be done at this point. And so you can
True enough.
You can tell right away that what they're establishing is more of a friendship, is more of like a they are companions. Really.
Yes, very much so.
They're fulfilling each other's need for just somebody in your life that like maybe sort of cares about you a little bit
and gets it right.
And so the fact that that we obviously continue along and her mom like sees this opportunity to use Beth's talent to get to travel and to
have a life,
to have
really.
fun and to have a life,
to live.
But at the same time, you're watching that, and you never really feel bad for Beth in that way, or like she's being used.
Well, because frankly, her situation was worse before.
Exactly, and she needed
an opportunity,
her mom
to help
get her to these places and
travel with her, be
companion,
sort of her manager,
be
take
that manager.
10%.
Right,
yeah.
And so I think they really kind of hammer that home.
15%, I think, is what she ends up giving her.
Where her mom, like they have that conversation that's about to be awkward, where her mom has to ask for a percentage. Like, hey, it's that weird stage mom thing. Like, so
I need some of this money.
You're gonna have to pay me some of this. And she throws out a number, and Beth immediately goes over that number.
And they're all good.
And to make it all good, right?
Right.
Like that's like the moment where you get that this is totally mutual. And then it continues, and like she's obviously not the best mother.
Nah, she's an alcoholic for one.
Sharing drinks with her underage child,
who already has a drug problem.
Letting her spend the night over at random houses with boys that she's never met before, doesn't know where, going to college parties.
And if you frame it up though, like Alice, her mom never did that, right? The most risky thing she ever did was have a Mexican pen pal that ends up kind of being a sleazebag. That was it, man. So she's watching Beth do this stuff, and I'm sure, there's the motherly instinct to be like, now be careful or whatever. But she doesn't want to restrict her.
Right.
She really doesn't. She makes no effort to try to keep her from experimenting, doing fun shit, learning on her own, really, because I think she knows she didn't really live life much up until this point. So
yeah. So as the episodes go on, those first 5 episodes, I just really enjoyed their relationship because you're a little nervous that it's going to go
totally
bad.
Toxic, right?
Yeah, because
that's happened so often in stories, right?
And because of the nature of their relationship,
because of Britney Spears' dad,
there's money involved, and yeah, exactly. They there's all sorts of potential pitfalls, but the fact that they are able to just kind of like be each other's kind of confidant, is really nice. And so even though that like
it's a weird relationship,
and maybe it's not the healthiest for either one of them, you know that there's love there, and that's kind of
both of their lives are improved by the relationship. I think I don't think you could argue against that.
Yeah.
And it's better than nothing, right? And and both of them have something instead of nothing, and that's the biggest one for them both. And it really is, as you said to me, that's one of the more captivating elements of the show, is the relationship between Beth and Alice, Beth and her mom. What is the name of the gentleman who trains her down in the basement? Mr. Scheibel.
Yeah.
Played by Bill Camp.
Our man, Bill Camp.
Another great, obviously one of the more fascinating characters in the show, and one that up until the point I've watched, we don't know much about.
No.
He's this janitor down in the basement of the orphanage that Beth, for whatever reason, nobody ever requires her to go to class, so she finishes her schoolwork so quickly that she's always sent down to the basement to pound out erasers, and Mr. Scheibel's just down there drinking whiskey and playing chess with himself because that's what this crazy old codger's decided to do with his life. But we really don't know why necessarily he's good at chess, why he's connected to, an example, the high school chess guy who comes in and then plays with Beth and then sees that she's got talent, and that sort of begins her on this path to stardom. We don't have really any explanation for Mr. Scheibel yet, and I'm hoping we get some more of his background at some point.
Yeah,
because he seems to be a very important character still. They've sort of.
She talks about him when she gives the interview.
That's her
right?
mentor.
Like
That's who gave her this
Yep.
opportunity. And it seems like that relationship, now that Beth's mother is going to be in a different situation, there's an opportunity there for Mr. Scheibel to perhaps take a bigger role in Beth's life, I think.
Yeah, I based on the setup for episode 7, it's definitely possible that we get more, but in the finale. But I don't think he's going to show up as any type of like
reoccurring major character,
major mentor.
Interesting.
I think that there's a strange element in those first 2 episodes where I was getting some weird vibes between like the high school chess teacher and Beth, and a little bit from Mr. Scheibel and Beth, and I couldn't tell how creepy they were trying to, like what level of creepiness they were insinuating there
with Scheibel and Beth.
Now, after having watched almost the entire thing, what I believe is happening throughout the series is that Beth has, I guess I would say, she has an interesting relationship with men in general. And they I think that in general they are attracted to her and potentially want something from her. And then she's also, one of the main themes throughout the series is that she's living in this very, very male-dominated world of chess, and wants to be taken seriously just as a chess player, not as a chess player that is a woman.
Yes, that is definitely a theme of the show.
And so I think that I think there's just this relationship that the show is kind of like picking out a little bit about, like, her history and how she does deal with men, how she is able to deal with men, how she, like, some of the weird, the weird quirks that in the various relationships that she does have with men. Because we have Mr. Scheibel first, and then we have Towns, and then we have Belvic whatever the guy's name is.
She loses her own dad in a car accident,
and then we've got Benny.
She loses her stepdad to abandonment, basically. Scheibel becomes sort of her de facto mentor, male dad,
sort of. Yeah,
I'll say I never got any creepy vibes from Scheibel.
Okay,
the high school teacher,
I wasn't
high school teacher a little bit.
I really could not tell if I was supposed to be getting those vibes or not.
Yeah, I feel you.
Maybe
but the high school teacher, maybe a little.
Maybe it's just this crazy QAnon world that we live in these days.
I think that's
where
a big
everybody's
part of it.
ears are just like extremely sensitive and perk up as soon as there's.
I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But the high school teacher, I could see a little bit more, but it was less about sexuality and more about, like, the way he was treating her because she was a girl.
Yeah, like bringing her the doll.
Right.
Instead of,
right,
a chess book.
And then
whatever,
obviously
or whatever else.
This comes up sort of repetitively down the line as at one point she's called, what does she say? They call her something and she says co-champion. She keeps having to defend herself based on her sexuality, basically, or her sex. And yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes from here, especially because they've started to play with it a little bit. She's hooking up with boys. She's doing stuff like that. Her mom is now gone. Like, where is she gonna put the pain of another loss? Like the stepmother that was her mother and also her confidant, her best friend, her best friend, point blank, not an orphan, best friend, and the person who was managing her and taking 10% and helping her get around. Like, where's that gap? That's the next big thing I'm looking forward to seeing. Anya Taylor-Joy is ridiculously talented.
Very talented.
This has been a really cool breakout. Obviously, you need a breakout almost to have this level of attention drawn to your show. You need something really special to happen.
Yep.
And she's been a big part of that.
Indeed.
The pill popping, chess on the ceiling shit, man. Every time I see it, I'm like, God, that's dope. And I don't know where the drug was.
You're trying to make
gets
that
me there.
happen.
I just never got that experience, and I feel like I missed out, and I've exited the drug phase of life, and now I can never play chess on the ceiling, and that's kind of a bummer.
It is weird that. Isn't it kind of weird that like this tranquilizer is
making her
you
trip balls?
is making you hallucinate?
Here's my argument: the tranquilizer is giving Beth the calm and putting her in a mental state where she, being a genius, we saw her mom. There was clearly her mom was special. She was very smart, but had serious
Correct.
mental health issues, perhaps.
A brilliant math mind is what we take away from like the books that her mom has laying around.
So as a result, you can assume Beth, similar
Beth
mind.
Yes. Yep.
And what my take with the pills is that they give her the ability to harness that. That they put her in a place where when she's laying there in bed, drugged out of her skull, she can focus on one singular thing.
Okay.
It kind of gets the monkey off her back, if you will. And so that's the sort of thing she's chasing now. She obviously, man, the scene where she straight up yoinks the whole jar and starts shoveling them into her mouth, I was like, this is the most hardcore child to ever exist. Like, and that's a weird element to the show. You're watching this kid get really fucked up on drugs.
Yep.
That's a weird element, but it's something that's captivating and that everybody has a little feel for with addiction and substance abuse and sort of finding your way in the world of drugs and alcohol as a kid. That's something a lot of people can identify with too. So this show has like a little bit of everything, and it's so well executed, and it's cool the way it's shot, and it's got all these elements like the chess on the ceiling stuff. As Barrett describes it, sexy chess is very much a part of this too. It's cool to watch these people. I mean, it's cool to watch Beth destroy a bunch of motherfuckers in chess. That's fun. So I've had a blast so far. I'm looking forward to continuing it and closing it out. By next week, we should be able to discuss the show as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm not done by next week, it's because I'm dead. That will be the explanation, Barrett. Do you want to move on and talk a little Bly Manor finale?
We can talk a little Bly Manor finale. Yeah.
So I closed it out. I finished it up.
You closed it out.
Got it
you wrapped
done.
It up.
As you alluded to, it was quite sad.
Yes.
It was very sad because
extremely touching.
Yeah, you watch this relationship unfold over the course of the final episode. It's the bulk of the final episode, frankly, takes place away from Bly Manor after Danny exits, right? And to know, I mean, she leaves Bly Manor having saved perfectly splendid, what's her name's, Flora's life, right? She leaves Bly Manor having saved Flora's life, and she knows there's a clock on her life.
To do so,
basically.
she has to let
She runs out.
the lady
and she
in the lake.
yells, "It's you! It's me! It's us!"
And that allows
The lady in the lake
spirit
is
to
like,
enter.
"Oh, sick!
Yeah.
Never mind. I'll just possess this chick."
Yep.
And Flora gets to go free. As a result, she sees now, instead of her ex-boyfriend, her ex-fiance rather, who died in that tragic car accident in Reflections, she sees the lady in the lake, and she knows she's lurking, and at any point, basically that she could take her is the way it's put. There has to be a lady in the lake. Generally, the rule here. If the lady in the lake now has an out, I don't know why she waits. Not sure what that's about. If I was her, I'd probably just grab Danny straight up instantly. Sick of being in the lake.
Yeah.
But and there's also, it's strange.
Well, you have to be invited, right?
Yeah, but she gets invited, and then she waits forever to actually take her. And Danny lives out years and years of her life with her girlfriend and then wife, inevitably.
Yeah.
Not perhaps legally, but they get into that a little as well.
Now we're into a piece of the puzzle that's kind of like open for interpretation.
Okay.
Right? Because it's like it's almost. I think the lady in the lake wants to be out. She wants to be not confined to the manor.
So she's sort of in Danny, living that. She's getting to experience life through her, sort of.
Yeah. I think that's more what it's about.
Okay.
Because the reason I'm saying that is because when Danny does return, that's like, okay, I'm putting you back in the lake, basically.
Right.
Because there's nowhere else that's safe for you to be.
Okay. Yeah, she doesn't trust the lady in the lake to not full possess her and kill somebody or go on a nutty, who knows.
Yeah.
This evil entity that's inside her needs to be put somewhere safe, so Danny has to return to the lake. And then as the show explains, she doesn't act as the old lady in the lake did.
Right.
She is a peaceful presence. Nobody else disappears.
Yeah.
She stays down there. She doesn't fuck with anybody. Danny was a good person, so she chooses to be a good ghost. which was devastating to watch. Obviously,
Really crushing.
Yeah, it was tough, man. It was because
They-
you knew, man. They weren't gonna find this show was not gonna end with a positive note. Them finding some way around it or something. It was always gonna be the gardener ending up being the one at the house party telling the story, and then Flora being the little girl listening to it, and that was really cool to see.
Yeah. Now
we saw Miles all grown up. We saw
I do have a bit of a nit to pick here.
Pickett, Owen all grown up too. Pickett though.
Okay, yeah, because we're going right.
Uh-huh.
We play out the whole thing, and then I'm not totally sure that the ages all make sense, because when they're living their life in the States and they meet up with Owen at the restaurant, right, and he's telling them about how the kids don't remember anything.
Right.
He mentions their ages. And Flora at that point is 17, so Miles is like 19 or 20. And then how old do you think Flora's supposed to be at her wedding? Like what's the max oldest she is?
22 max. Like what?
No, that's not the max. She could be 30.
She looks young, dude.
Yeah, so but you think the max she is 22? I'm saying stretch it. What is the oldest she could potentially
30
be?
max,
Yeah,
then.
right? Like
I mean,
30.
if you told me she was a Russian ballerina
So
prima
that's-
donna receiving
anyway.
the best skincare every day,
So,
maybe 30.
I don't think she's supposed to be 30. She doesn't look all the way 30. The way that they talk about the relationship and the wedding and all that type of stuff is like it feels like it's the boyfriend that they were talking about when she was 17, right? So, but let's just say that it is 30. That's 13 years later. Danny and the gardener were looking, young and fresh. They were like in their 30s.
Okay.
So now we're pushing them into like maybe their mid 40s, late 40s, and
Yeah.
yet we go from Gardner to Carla Gugino all aged up to look like she's 55.
Okay, so this says, I'm on the internet on Screen Rant. In 2007, Flora would be 28 years old and Miles would be 30 years old. So that's by the time the series ends. Because in 1987, Flora is 8 and Miles is 10. It's saying.
Okay.
So I don't know. That was a weird element for sure. But even when
It was I'm just saying
when they were little kids, they kept fucking with it. How I don't feel like I'm as old as I'm supposed to. The way people would time travel and they wouldn't age in the time traveling parts.
This was part casting, part makeup, part storytelling. But even
Yeah.
like Owen, like the guy that they had playing Owen, one didn't look like Owen. And then two, like sort of could have maybe been the same age as Owen. They just like he was I don't know. It was weird that they needed to recast Owen.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that decision either.
I don't know. The whole thing was weird. Why didn't they just age up the people that were playing themselves?
I don't know.
Right?
I don't know.
Like
That
make
was
them
odd.
a little older.
I really don't know.
Also,
Especially
like,
because they did it at different points.
were we maybe showing? Were we telling the story with like people that weren't actually the people?
Maybe
kind of,
maybe a little bit.
Right?
Maybe maybe.
I don't know.
That was strange, man.
It took me out of it a little bit. Is
It
what
was
I'm saying.
it was very
Because
odd in the
because
finale.
I was suddenly like trying to do the math to be like, wait, why they got Carla Gugino looking old as hell here?
So I just went full like, whatever.
Not that she didn't look bad. They just clearly have like her hair very
went-
gray,
they went
and like they
and
aged her up
aged her
a little
up.
bit, and so they were clearly like pushing that age up. They could have just had Carla Gugino playing it like her regular age. That was probably the age of that the Gardener was supposed to be. I don't know.
Ghost stories,
Like I said,
man.
I'm picking
Ghost
nits.
stories.
I'm picking nits here.
You were picking nits.
But
It's okay though.
but it did because I loved the final episode. I loved getting to watch the relationship play out with Danny and what's the gardener's name? We got
I can't find her because they're not labeling her as the gardener. You know.
Yeah.
Is it Jamie?
Jamie.
Yeah, Jamie.
So that was all really good, and
Flora gets to live life though, and that's what's
Yeah.
important. That's what's important. Frankly, for the record, if I'm in the same situation, I don't know that I can go full Danny.
all right, I got a question here.
Uh-huh.
Are you sitting there at that rehearsal dinner? You listening to that entire story?
God. God, no. That premise was ludicrous.
Lady, you're scaring us.
Yeah. They even threw in like, I told you it was a long story. And everybody was like, okay. Yeah, that was silly, man. Don't force the premise that way. Like they didn't need that.
They definitely wanted Carla Gugino back in some form. I think that's the first piece of this story.
They didn't need that setup though, where first episode opening is her sitting down to tell the story. Closing is it ending up being that she's telling it to these people, and then we get these weird characters who are supposed to be different versions of it. It was fucking bizarre.
Yeah.
That was a strange choice. Overall,
did it end as are you as high on it as it ended, as it concluded, as you were on it last week?
Maybe perhaps a little lower than I was last week, but
Okay.
overall I was very impressed with the show. I thought it was a great season. It really drew me in. I loved that it was a love story instead of a horror story.
Yeah,
I loved
totally.
the creepy elements that they tied in, but the love stories were executed very well. And man, it was just, that was a special piece of TV. It's tough to pull that off.
As far as creeps go, we've talked about how this wasn't like the scariest show ever.
Right.
Did you find the kind of faceless lady in the lake with the face
There was
all rubbed
more
down?
than enough creepiness for me.
That was pretty good. That was pretty spooky looking.
How you lose your face if you stay there too long or whatever. Her sort of path through the house where you get choked to death if you accidentally get in her way. All the elements of the ghosts and figuring out through the first 5 episodes who's alive and how they died and blah, blah, blah. That was all very cool.
I wish they had given me a little bit more on the whole dollhouse thing.
Yeah, I still don't understand what the hell happened there.
Where'd that come from? Did Flora make it?
Well, the guy brought it over as sort of like a... When her uncle was having the affair with their mom,
That's right.
He brought it over, but we never
right.
really got how it operates. She just tells us she has a very specific system, and I believe it's to track
the
where
ghosts.
everybody is and the ghosts, to make sure they're safe so that nobody gets choked out and killed, because she's obviously seen this happen now multiple times to multiple different people pre-Danny.
And the other weird part is that, like, I think about like episode 1 or 2 when Flora kind of freaks out because Danny picks up the lady in the lake one from under the dresser.
Yeah.
Why was it under the dresser? What did that mean?
I don't know. Like she was trying to put her away or something for now. I don't know, man. That's the thing that was unclear about the dollhouse. I never came to a full understanding there.
Anyway, yeah. Again, we're just like I'm just picking nits with some plot stuff.
Yeah,
I'm totally with you. Overall, I thought this was really enjoyable show for Creepy Month. Good, solid love story with the horror elements in it. That was a nice way to go. That was
cool
a fun,
effects and stuff.
That was a fun wrinkle. A good way to do a 10-episode season of horror. There.
Yeah, I agree. It was highly enjoyable. I'll definitely tune in for the next installment from this series to see what they bring. It's become like an American Horror Story in that way, but a different version of that sort of anthology, you know?
The Haunting of Bolen Abode.
Yeah. No, that'd be nice if we could avoid that. 2020 was a lot. Let's just not haunt my house next year. I just want to chill, you know?
Yeah.
Speaking of next year, let's get to some of these big announcements. Today's episode of
announcement
OCC,
time.
first of all, is brought to you by Leesa, makers of the greatest mattresses in the world. I routinely argue your mattress is up there with your living room TV in terms of important purchases you make for your home, and you have to ask yourself, is my bed suck a little? Am I getting good sleep? Do I even remember where I got this bed? Do I? Do you? If not, it's time. Get yourself a new bed. Get yourself one of the best beds in the entire world made by Leesa. They know how important rest is to a better life. Leesa is the foundation of a healthier, happier you, and to Leesa, a bed is more than just a place to sleep. It's a place for relaxation and a place for rest. All of their products at Leesa have been thoughtfully designed to go beyond creating a comfortable bed to transform your bedroom into a sanctuary you want to spend time in. I've been sleeping on their Leesa Legend mattress for several months now. It is unbelievable. I slept on the Leesa Hybrid for years and years before that. I use a Leesa pillow. I've got their blankets. I got Leesa to hook my Mimi and a memory care unit up with a Leesa mattress. They're the best in the world. I love them. You will love them too. And Leesa donates 1 mattress for every 10 they sell through organizations that work in causes like foster care prevention. To date, they've donated more than 33,000 mattresses through more than 1,000 nonprofits. Leesa mattresses are made in the USA, in-home delivery and setup is available. Financing is also available. Don't miss out, Clam Fam. Live healthier. Live happier by resting deeper. Order today and get 15% off any mattress for a limited time at leesa.com/dragon. Use the promo code DRAGON. That's LEESA.com/dragon. Promo code DRAGON. Leesa. And now let's talk the year 2021.
Wow. It's almost here, Ross.
And what is coming.
Can't
and really,
get here
frankly,
quick enough.
Barrett, frankly, it's December and the year 2021.
That's right. We're starting early
We are indeed.
because we wanted to get a jump on things.
On 2 fronts. And I guess I'll start with my favorite piece of the announcement. We're going to be doing something very, very special on Patreon starting in December.
Patreon is changing. As
It
you
is
know,
changing.
as you know it.
It has been a confusing place where we have gotten a lot of love and support over the course of this year from a lot of members of the Mollusk Militia and Crustacean Nation, and we love all of you and appreciate you. Y'all are awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and we hope you've thoroughly enjoyed the episodes you've been given. But what we found is, if we want to maintain enough support on Patreon to continue to use that as a means of growing the show and as a means of making sure that Barrett and I are able to do this show in the form we find most fit, then we need to switch up. And we need to have something that's a more specific draw, something that's marketable, something that makes sense, that's easy to explain to people. And Barrett and I started talking about this about a year and a half ago even maybe. And the decision that we made over the past week, a couple weeks really, having some more meetings and really having time to focus on it for December and for 2021 and what we want to do with Patreon to get as many listeners of this show in there as possible with something that we think everybody can enjoy and that'll be worth the financial contribution to support this show that you put in. And what we landed on is doing an episode-by-episode watch of perhaps my favorite television show of all time. HBO's The Sopranos.
Forget about it.
Now, this is big for a multitude of reasons. One, Barrett has never seen The Sopranos.
Ross, I'm working here.
He's going to do a lot of this over the next several years, I imagine. No, there's a lot of things. One, Barrett's never seen it. Two, I've seen it about 7 times. Obsessed with the show, love it. As I've said many, many times with Game of Thrones, it was right there as one of my favorites. I think in the end, The Sopranos maintained its spot, frankly, after what we saw in Season 8 of Game of Thrones, unfortunately. So I'm obsessed with the show. We also have access to some of the actors from the show as a result of some relationships that we've built out over the course of time, and it's a possibility that we could have some of them as guests on Patreon at different points. We'll see.
Wow.
We'll see what we're able to pull together.
Wow.
But with the unique perspective of it being a show that Barrett's never seen, a show that I've seen several times, of one that gives us, we're going to do 1 episode a week. That's the Patreon plan. So Barrett and I and all of you who want to join us on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles will, starting in December, by the way, first week of December, we're doing Sopranos Season 1, Episode 1 on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. December, first week. Cannot wait. Very stoked. Season 1 is phenomenal. This is a show that, as I've spoken to in the past, it sort of finds its footing in Season 1. You'll notice a lot of different. One of the things I'm sure we'll discuss is the way Tony sort of finds his voice in Episode 1 versus Season 2, perhaps. Barrett and I are going to work through episode by episode. We're going to discuss the episodes as we did with Game of Thrones back in the day, not necessarily scene by scene, breaking them down for God knows how long, but discussing all the important elements of every episode, getting takes from Barrett. Obviously, I'm not going to be throwing out spoilers about what happens next week or anything like that, so whether you've seen The Sopranos before or you want to enjoy it for the first time, the podcast will be safe for you, and we're just going to analyze what The Sopranos brings to the table on an episode-by-episode basis, starting with Season 1, Episode 1 in December.
Yeah, if you haven't noticed, one of my favorite things to do recently is go back and reflect on stuff that was inspiring or affecting or impactful to me.
Culturally important
Culturally
stuff.
Important over
And
the
how it
over the
aged.
last 20, 25 years and how it aged and what it kind of hath wrought, if you will.
Indeed.
And so The Sopranos is obviously, we're not the first podcast to take this one on. We won't be the last.
No.
But it's arguably the most important show that I've never seen. And then people like when we pull back the curtain here. This is good for a variety of reasons. Obviously, as we've spoken to, the main show for 2021 is going to be a lot more like Tidbits and such, and a lot more like the conversations we just had on Queen's Gambit when Ross and I both kind of like get captured by a show and are able to like bang it out real quick. What those shows won't feature as much of is episodic breakdowns and reviews of television.
Right.
And
the
so,
idea that the obvious thing we ran into this year especially was that everything gets so segmented, the show gets very difficult to keep up with podcast-wise, the podcast becomes very difficult to keep up with, and then obviously for Barrett and I, workload-wise, in terms of obviously this not being the only thing that we do for a living, it's a lot. That's a lot to watch several hours of TV a week. It's a lot to ask of y'all, and it's something that we found to be unreasonable when it all came down to it.
Right, and then there's no rhyme or reason for like, making a decision, well, should we cover this show on regular or this show on Patreon? Like, how would we make that decision? If anything, that adds an impetus to watch more television if we're going to cover other stuff on Patreon versus the ad-based. It's difficult to plan for the Patreon. We've been pushing a lot of the fun stuff, like some of the randomness and some of the random takes and that type of thing, to Patreon. And really, that's stuff that probably belongs more on the ad-based.
Right.
Plus, you guys don't know what's coming on Patreon, so you don't really have, like, unless you just love us and you just are down to ride for us no matter what.
And that's who's there right now.
Which, by the way, we are, incredibly grateful for everybody
Yes.
that is still doing that.
Thank you all
for
very
us.
much. Thank you all.
But at the same time, it's a slow drip. We lose patrons every month as it currently stands.
Yeah, and as I spoke to a little bit, this year unfolded in a way that, for both obvious reasons and then personal reasons, it was we weren't able to really put as much focus into this sort of planning as we would have liked. And as a result, that's why I'm so thankful for everybody who really has powered through and stuck around with us on Patreon throughout the course of 2020, because it meant a lot, and I'm aware that the offering could be better. That's why we're now looking to improve it and bring something that I genuinely believe everybody will love.
Yeah, so this is huge, because you are going to know exactly what you're getting on Patreon every single week.
Throughout the whole freaking year.
For 2 years, probably.
Probably.
And on top of that, if what you like, if one of your favorite things about listening to our show is hearing us talk in specifics about television episodes and about a TV program overall, that's where you're going to get it. We are going back to potentially the most hallowed show of all time, ripe for discussion, ripe for those types of breakdowns, ripe for discussion, and that's going to be on Patreon. And we're still going to find a way to include some of the other things that you've come to know and love about those Patreon episodes. I think that the plan is to kind of sprinkle in hotline calls throughout.
Yeah, we can work stuff like that. Don't be mistaken. If there's a week like, there's a crazy holiday or something, and like maybe we do take a week to do something else. It's just on a general schedule, we're going to do an episode of The Sopranos per week. Now, if there's ever a special circumstance, we'll obviously inform everybody and then fill that with something else. Maybe we do a hotline call episode between seasons or something like that. We're ironing out the details on that sort of thing in the coming weeks, but December week 1, we will be doing The Sopranos Season 1, Episode 1 on patreon.com/oystersclamscockles. You're going to see all the tier changes that are made. If you're in the Mollusk Militia, stay in the Mollusk Militia for now. We will give you full details on everything the Mollusk Militia will entail in 2021, or starting in December, I'm sorry. And then there will be another separate tier that is lower for people who just want this weekly Sopranos coverage and nothing else. They'll get nothing on top of that. Mollusk Militia, we're coming up with everything that you're going to be offered still, as I've said. Ironing out the details. Very, very, very excited for patreon.com/oystersclamscockles starting in December. Going back to The Sopranos, it has been years since I've done a rewatch. It's been too long, frankly. I think it's been the longest amount of time that's passed since I've fell in love with this show when it was on TV. I cannot wait to get back to dishing out Sopranos takes and speaking in a New Jersey accent unintentionally, just randomly, because I'm watching so much of The Sopranos.
Yeah.
It's going to be a blast. Now, on the other front, in terms of huge announcements for this week, and Barrett started talking a little bit about it already.
Real quick,
Go ahead,
I just
sir.
wanted to say,
Go ahead.
if you are ready, if you are not a patron and you are ready to jump in, just full disclosure, the $5 tier, the Crustacean Nation tier, will get you every episode that we do on Patreon.
Yes.
Starting in December.
December. Right? This month it'll get you 3. If you want to jump in now and get yourself 3 extra episodes that are ad-free, they just won't be The Sopranos yet.
But Crustacean Nation and Mollusk Militia, starting in December, will get the same number of podcast episodes. Ross alluded to the fact that we are working out all of the extras that you will get for staying with us as a real one, as a day one, as a big time supporter of the podcast, as an OG, as a member of that Mollusk Militia. We will have an expanded offering for that tier as well.
Yes, very much looking forward to that. And again, we'll bring more details in the coming weeks before December, so that you're aware of what's happening. So thank y'all, everybody who's in the Mollusk Militia and in the Crustacean Nation and our Wiretapper on patreon.com/oystersclamscockles.
It is sad. It's sad to announce that November will be the last
Wiretapper.
That's the
month.
last month for the Wiretapper.
This guy was.
I am sorry, Wiretapper.
We got to send him a letter, like some kind of handwritten letter, just a real short thank you letter for being a Wiretapper, for being our Wiretapper. On the regular show, on this show, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on YouTube.com/Bolen Media, where you can watch every episode of OCC, starting in December as well. We're going to be doing, and we gave you some examples of this already. We gave you the full episode about The Vow. We gave you an episode that was more general television entertainment talk. And what we want to do in December of 2020 and into 2021 on this show, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on our general, as we refer to it, our ad-based episode every week, we want to bring y'all stuff that's not so viewership intensive, that doesn't require you to watch so many hours of TV every week, that doesn't require you to have kept up with 3 different shows to be able to listen to the whole podcast. There's too much either skipping, or people fall behind, or you're having to jump around, or you're watching this show and not that show. It's also, as I mentioned, it's a lot for me, just for me to be able to do, for Barrett to be able to do. It's a lot for us to watch. So we're going to be doing a more relaxed, spoiler-free, not episodic, breakdown-focused version of the podcast starting soon. And it's going to be more general, I guess you could say. Barrett and I want to do more. Tidbits and Such is basically going to be the podcast. Like, that was a segment that was born of this desire for Barrett and I to talk more generally about television, film, and entertainment, pop culture, Hollywood, and the like. As such, we saw how much we enjoy it. We saw what it resulted in. We saw how much y'all enjoyed it. We saw that was the obvious direction to take the show, and as such, we are doing it. It just won't be Tidbits and Such necessarily. It's just oysters, clams, and cockles. That's what you get here. General television, film, and entertainment talk. Every week, we're going to talk about the latest and greatest that y'all need to know about. We're going to talk about what we are watching, but more generally, we'll do stuff like if Barrett watches a show I haven't watched yet, he can pitch us all on it. If I watched a movie, I can pitch y'all all on it. We can review, discuss, generally enjoy ourselves and laugh together in a way that doesn't require us all to watch an ungodly and frankly unhealthy amount of television each and every week. So that's what's coming. That's what we've already started the process of doing. As I said, when it comes to Patreon, details coming in the coming weeks, starting in December, Season 1, Episode 1 of The Sopranos, and starting really, frankly, now, this show every week should be much more accessible to all y'all. There are a couple things Barrett and I are still talking about wrapping up, like Yellowstone. I'm basically just working my way through it when I can, and we're talking about it. I mean, it's falling into the mix of, this is the way we operate the show now, right? Like, if when we get through stuff and we want to discuss, we will. And sometimes there will be things where we're like, let's talk about Season 2 of Yellowstone. This is chaos. And if you haven't watched it, maybe you will want to skip. But more in general, the bulk of the show is going to be friendly to everybody every week. So you can tune in every single week here on Oysters, Clams, and Cockles and enjoy what Barrett and I are bringing you. And just from a full disclosure standpoint, the other side of this is that our business is obviously backed by 2 things: advertising, our sponsors who pay for ads here, which, as you saw this week, we have 3. We're very thankful for them. And then those of you on Patreon. Those are the two ways we bring in money. And in 2020, what we found is that the show was still being seen as this. It was the Game of Thrones podcast. The branding didn't really make sense. Wait a minute, you have to have watched all these things to keep up. So what we struggled with advertisers as well, which is obviously important because Barrett and I put many, 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 many hours into doing this episode or this podcast every month. And we want to make sure that makes sense for everybody. And this now gives us the ability to explain to advertisers what the show is very easily, to get them to support us so that we can continue to do the show, pay for our studio time, pay for the video that we put up on youtube.com/Bolen Media, etc. So again, thank you so much to everybody who's been riding with us since back when we started covering Game of Thrones several years ago. Thank you to everybody who's gone through this whole phase of 2020 with us. We hope you've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you to everybody who's backed us on Patreon. Just regardless of the circumstances, who's been there for us to support us financially and make sure that Barrett and I were able to just survive this year even, so that we could get to a place where now we can grow and show you exactly what we want to do with this show. So very excited. Most excited I've been since probably pre-finale or pre-Game of Thrones Season 8 for what we get to do here. I am so stoked on the Patreon. I promise if you've loved hearing me speak on anything ever, you will love hearing me speak on The Sopranos, and I cannot wait for Barrett to enjoy this thing with me. I'm very, very, very pumped.
Yeah, the real thing here, the ulterior motive for me is that this was the only way I was going to get to watch The Sopranos, is if I made it a required viewing for
work.
For work.
Now the girlfriend's like, damn it.
Yeah. So now it's mandatory, and now we have to do it.
That's unfortunate, Barrett, but we do have to do it. We have now announced it officially. It's over.
Yes.
Sorry, Laura. This is happening. This is happening. Strap in. You're going to hear a lot of
Huzzah.
Barrett asking for gabagool, and it's just going to get very strange.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Give me a calzone.
Oh, I can't wait. The last thing I'll say about The Sopranos is that there was a point in college where I was watching The Sopranos so often.
Let's manage some waste.
When I would black out, I would just start speaking like I was in the mafia, like I had a New Jersey accent, and it became a real concern for several friends of mine where eventually there was almost an intervention type of situation. So, suffice it to say, I'm very surprised about covering The Sopranos on Patreon. Last time, Patreon, patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. That's where you will find exclusive ad-free episodes of OCC starting in December, week 1, season 1, episode 1 of The Sopranos, and throughout the course of 2021 and into 2022 even, patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles. Covering The Sopranos. Cannot wait. Going to love it. You will. You are. Both. Really. Frankly. And that will do it for today's episode of OCC, produced by Myrriah, Gossett, and Mike Moody Garcia of Permanent Record Studios in Austin, Texas. Huge thanks again to our sponsors from today. We had 3 Felix Gray glasses.com/OCC, echelonfit.com/dragon, and Leesa.com/dragon. Support our sponsors who support us. And as we've said, if for some reason you're not looking to support us through our sponsors, then there's a way to directly support us on patreon.com/oysters, clams, cockles, and you just were told everything that's coming there. So a lot to look forward to. Very exciting things. We're turning a page, a new leaf, positivity. You love it. You love to see the momentum. Follow us on Instagram at Oysters, Clams, Cockles, on Twitter at Clams and Cockles, and on Facebook.com/Oysters, Clams, Cockles. I'm Ross Bolen, and you can follow me everywhere at WR Bolen, at WRBOLEN on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat as well. And listen to the Ross Bolen podcast, my mental health and wellness podcast. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube.com/Bolen Media, anywhere you listen to OCC. You can listen to RBP, as it's called, the Ross Bolen Podcast. Thank you for your support there as well. And as I said, you can watch every episode if you want to see Barrett and I. Barrett, you want to give a little wave to the camera here? YouTube.com/Bolen Media. Watch the episodes. We got a great setup at the new studio at Permanent Record in Austin, Texas. People have been enjoying it. People are loving it.
What do I do with my hands?
They say they love it. Look,
Ricky Bobby, Talladega Nights.
They say they love it. That's a Talladega Nights reference. Another great movie.
Yes, indeed.
Another great comedy. Barrett, where can we follow you on the social medias?
At Barrett Dudley on the social medias. That's all I'm going to say because my bladder is about to bust. So
Barrett's got to go tinkle, so we're done for today. We're gone. We're out. Hope you enjoyed the happy news. Holler at us on social media to tell us how excited you are about 2021, and that will do it for today's show. Until our next helping, adios, muchachos.